Hi, I'm Rich Zatkowski, and welcome to another episode of the Wild World of Classics. You know, this year we're going to go in a lot of new directions. In fact, we're going to the auto show this year. We're going to be filming a lot of new cars. It's the 100th year that the auto show has been coming to Chicago. Did you know that Chicago is the birthplace for auto racing? We'll touch on that in future shows also. We're going to be starting a new segment with the Wild World of Classics, and that is the Wild World of Classics takes the mystery out of automotive history. We're going to touch on cars like the Mustang, the Corvette, Duesenberg, real interesting people in the automotive field like Lee Iacocca and John DeLorean, and so many more. We're going to actually go and get footage from museums. We're going to go back and do some more of those things that you guys love the best, and that's working on cars. In fact, we're working on a segment right now. We have a couple of cars. We're going to call the segment Junkyard Dog to Showtime. Today's show, we're going to go over to Journey in Time, a museum. We're going to do another new episode in the show, and that's a segment in the show which is going to be called Test Drive and Review. We're going to be test driving new vehicles, letting you know what's out there in the automotive market. Join us with another interesting episode of the Wild World of Classics. You know, from the year 1960 through 1997, the Bonneville Salt Flats have been an interesting place for breaking speed records. And here we have one of the vehicles that took part in breaking speed records. I think they've gone from somewhere in the vicinity of 400 miles, 300 miles an hour to over 600 and 700 miles an hour on the Bonneville Salt Flats. And this is one of the great vehicles that was used there. You know, here at the historic auto attractions in Roscoe, Illinois, it's a journey through time. We have the original vehicle used in that hit TV series that's in syndication, I think, since the 1970 Sanford and Son. You dummy, what are you talking about? I mean, wasn't this funny? Remember the old Elizabeth, the big one. I mean, we still laugh at the TV series from the 70s. And here at the Auto Historic Attractions, we have the complete display. In fact, a museum in California went out of business, and the owner of this museum was able to purchase a lot of the things from the Sanford and Son display out there. So it's a great show. I love the concept of what they've done in the museum here in Roscoe, Illinois, and this is the original truck that was used in the hit TV series from the 70s with Fred Sanford, or do you call him Red Fox? You know, I'm dating myself, but I remember as a child, that's right folks, I was a kid at one time, but then again I think I'm a kid that never grew up, but this was one of my favorite cartoon series back in the 60s. In fact, I can tell you a little tidbit of information. The Flintstones started out in 1962. It was a great cartoon series. Loved watching it, loved Fred and Wilma and Barney, and I'll give you another great tip of information on the Flintstones cartoon series. When it started out, they were going to have a baby. The Flintstones were. And when they had the baby, it originally was going to be a boy. Back then, they were really smart in what they did in marketing and that. And the people behind marketing decided that if they had a girl, they could make a lot more money because they're going to make a doll, Pebbles, and they can sell the doll, and it would sell a lot more than a boy doll. So that's how Pebbles in the Flintstones original cartoon series got started. And this vehicle here is the vehicle that was used in the movie The Flintstones that was just done recently. I'll tell you what, I love coming to this museum because there's just so much of history here, and every time you turn the corner, if you're like me, a kid that never grew up, you'll love this place. You know, I really feel like a little kid when I come through this museum. It's just something unbelievable. I remember watching TV when I was a little kid, and I remember seeing movies that Laurel and Hardy were in, and they were just phenomenal comedians. It just made you laugh no matter what. Well, this is a car. You can convert this into a pickup truck or a car. Back in 1925, this was the one used in the movie with Laurel and Hardy. Big business. This car, back in 1925, went for $281. If you wanted a starter in this car, it was another $25. But if you wanted the pickup truck back to it, that would have cost you another $25. Or $55. It's amazing what they used to do with automobiles, and this is one of the famous ones that was used with Laurel and Hardy. If you'd like to advertise on the Chicago History and Automotive Heaven television and radio show, you can contact me at 312-841-2560. Email me at rautomd@gmail.com. Go to our website and check out all of our stuff. We have a sponsors page on there at richiez.com. That's www.richieze.com. If you have a business, product, or a service, we can put together a package that'll help benefit your business, product, or service. Or if you just like to donate, it's a pledge drive. You can donate to our show and keep us on the air. We're actually looking for sponsors to do a lot more shows like you've seen today. I'm Richie Z. Thank you for watching. Test Drive and Review. The show is going to be doing vehicles hopefully in every show that we do. The first vehicle that we test drove was a Suzuki XL7. It's an SUV, and I was very impressed with the performance. But then again, Suzuki is high in high performance vehicles all along. Suzuki's always been involved with racing with motorcycles. In fact, they're the ones that came up with the Hayabusa motorcycle. That craze just went wild in the last 10 years. But that automobile that we test drove, we had it for about a month, and I really enjoyed it. The one thing I really want to get into was what I really was impressed with. It has a SureTrack, a traction control system. Today, if you're going to be buying any kind of a vehicle, that's one of the top things I would look into. You don't need the four-wheel drive vehicles anymore like you used to have. In fact, when you buy a four-wheel drive vehicle, you're adding about anywhere from about 800 to 1,500 pounds to the vehicle, plus you're spending thousands of dollars for something that you don't really need. Look into getting SureTrack or traction control with the vehicle. Suzuki's vehicle was great when it came to riding in the snow and ice. In fact, the vehicle won't even let you go into spin-outs or let you go faster than the road allows you. The vehicle lights up lights on the dashboard. Very impressed with that. And the ABS braking system was phenomenal. They started around $19,000 and they go up as high as $24,000. The one that we were driving was about $23,000. I was so impressed. I've ridden and driven SUVs that cost even double the money that this XL7 costs, and this one is, I would say, comparable to those vehicles that cost double the money. They had a great set of Bridgestone tires on it, really a great sound system. All-around vehicle, remote control so you can get in and out of the vehicle. I love that for safety. It has a lot of bells and whistles for a vehicle that only costs $23,000. Hey Barney, what's going on? Hey Gomer, what are you doing here? This is another car from a great television series, Andy and Mayberry. This squad car, in fact, let me tell you a little bit of information about this. Ford was not real big in giving cars to movies or studios back in the early 60s. They ended up giving this car to the Andy and Mayberry show so that Barney and Gomer could work on it. But this is the original car from the hit TV series Andy and Mayberry. In this television series, Barney here shot his gun 8 times in the series. Twice into the courthouse floor, once into the courthouse ceiling, once into the squad car's tire, and once into Andy's front porch. Give Barney a bullet and he'll shoot the gun. This is probably one of the most famous buses. I think this would really bring a lot of money. This was a bus that was used by so many superstars in the industry. It's phenomenal. This is the original bus of the Grateful Dead. In fact, back in 1967, when they started using this bus, it was used by their sound group. The band fell in love with it, and they started using it. It was a great meeting place. So many famous stars, musicians back in that era, from Hendrix to Joplin to Creedence Clearwater Revival, and on, rode in this bus, talked to the dead in this bus. They actually got together. I'm sure they made a few songs in here and did a few doobies. But this is probably one of the most sought after pieces of history when it comes to music. The Grateful Dead's bus that was used by the band itself from 1967 through 1985. What an interesting piece. Family Truckster, National Lampoon Family Vacation Vehicle, was a Ford LTD Country Squire wagon. This thing was absolutely ridiculous and disgusting. It was way overdone with wood paneling, 8 headlights on the front end, a real interesting grille to say the least, 1982 Tornado oil cooler grills. This vehicle with the hubcaps and missing, which were lost in St. Louis, it's just phenomenal. But this, I think, the vehicle helped make the movie a lot more funny because they had a lot of things happen in that movie with this vehicle. You know, it's amazing that you can actually take something and make comedy out of it. Well, that's what they did with this. And when they were stopped in one of the towns that they stopped in, they actually painted honky lips on the side of the vehicle. You know, years ago we were able to do stuff and laugh. Today, I don't know, we've become politically correct, and I don't think you could even do something like that. But this is the actual car from the movie National Lampoon's Family Vacation. The Wild World of Classics television show is going to start some new segments this year. Number 1, we're going to do Junkyard Dog to Showtime. But we're also going to do something called The Wild World of Classics Takes the Mystery Out of Automotive History. The automotive history is just unbelievable. And if you ever wanted to hear some stories about beautiful cars, beautiful workmanship, interesting people in the automotive industry, keep watching The Wild World of Classics. Today's show is going to deal with a little blast from the past, and we're going to take some of the mystery out of automotive history. What we have here is the DeLorean that was used in the movie Back to the Future. You know, I remember when automakers loved giving movie makers vehicles that they could use in the movie. In fact, any time a vehicle was used in a movie in a way where they were driving them fast or recklessly, or they just looked cool, people went out and bought the car. It kind of served as a way for the automakers to sell their product. Well, DeLorean is an interesting story. We will be telling on the Wild World of Classics. In fact, one of the shows we're working on right now is about John DeLorean. Just to give you a little bit of information on John DeLorean, he started out in the 50s working for General Motors. He ended up taking over the Pontiac division And making a long story short, if it wasn't for John DeLorean, you would have never had GTO. In fact, he even named one of the GTOs the Judge. Where he got the idea was from the hit comedy series Laugh-In. They used to have a segment on there called Here Comes the Judge. John DeLorean took that and named one of the GTOs the Judge. But this is one of the vehicles that John DeLorean also made, and it's in the movie Back to the Future. And Back to the Future 2 and 3, I believe. Great car, great individual, blast from the past. The movie in 1978, Superman. This is the costume that Christopher Reeves wore in the movie. You know, if you grew up in the 60s, you knew exactly who Bam, Pow, Zam were. That was the Batmobile and Batman and Robin. You know, one thing, they've done a lot of movies since this 60s era Batman. In fact, we have two of the original movie cars here, but we also have the original car in the movie series, in the TV series back in the 60s. And you know what? Looking at all three of the vehicles here, I don't know what it is, but this one just draws me in. I love this old 60s look. The Batman, the original Batman car. This was really something else. Batman and Robin. Boom, pow, zam! What I love here at this museum is not only do you get to view some gorgeous automobiles, but they have a description, a piece of history. They've put together beautiful backdrops telling you a little bit about the era and the vehicle that's here. This car here is a race car in the Indianapolis 500 back in 1929. An interesting fact is that Indianapolis Raceway started back in 1911. The first purse was like $27,550 to win. Now we go into a very interesting car. This is the first car that broke the speed record of 200 miles per hour. It was done back in 1977. This is the car, the actual car that broke the speed record of going over 200 miles per hour at a race. It's amazing when you come to a location like this and you get to not only see the car, the interesting stories, and memorabilia from the past. This was an actual suit that was worn by the racer that drove this car. You know, some of these cars have some interesting names. This is known as a slingshot dragster, and it was raced all over the country. It was built originally by Big Daddy Don Garlis, and it was stored for a lot of years, and finally the Historic Auto Attractions purchased this vehicle and brought it to a place where it's got a happy home. This is such an interesting place, so many interesting things to see. What a beautiful slingshot dragster. Back in 1965, you know what? Mopar really made some interesting vehicles. You know, everybody thought that Norm was the only guy. Mr. Norm, if you follow anything out of the 60s, was the only guy doing hot rods and racing. Well, he's a legend in our time, but here's a car that was commissioned, and the top advertiser on this car was J.C. Penney. In fact, this car was called the Penny Pincher. South Oak Dodge in the Chicago area was involved in racing back then in the 60s also. In fact, one interesting tidbit of information, South Oak Dodge is still doing hot rods and racing, and they're still heavily involved with automobiles in the racing industry. But this car was sold, and somebody else bought it. They changed the name on it. A bunch of things happened. They found out it was an original penny pincher car from the 60s, and it was brought back in, restored, and then McDonald's got on board, and so did Coca-Cola, and helped pay to keep this car a part of history. You know, it's so interesting that companies get behind these vehicles. Without the companies behind these vehicles, you see all the stickers on them, you wouldn't have a racing industry. It's very expensive to keep a car in the racing industry. If you'd like to advertise on the Chicago History and Automotive Heaven television and radio show, you can contact me at 312-841-2560. Email me at rautomd@gmail.com. Go to our website and check out all of our stuff. We have a sponsors page on there at richiez.com. That's www.richieze.com. If you have a business, product, or a service, we can put together a package that'll help benefit your business, product, or service. Or if you just like to donate, it's a pledge drive. You can donate to our show and keep us on the air. We're actually looking for sponsors to do a lot more shows like you've seen today. I'm Richie Z. Thank you for watching. The oldest race car in existence. This is Richard Petty's 1959 Plymouth. This thing won some races. It was fully restored in 1960. The oldest existing race car that was owned by the King, Richard Petty. This car was driven by Bobby Allison, 1977 Monte Carlo. This is the last car on the NASCAR Winston Cup race circuit to have a 115-inch wheelbase. 1991 Pontiac Grand Prix. They actually call this the cutaway car. You know what? People are so interested in the racing industry that they want to know as much as they can about automobiles. This was purposely made to give the fans what they want to see. They want to actually see how the vehicle is put together, what kind of components they use, how they build the box frames, the chassis, the suspension, and all of that. This car was made for the fans. The cutaway car, 1991 Pontiac Grand Prix. Here we have a beautiful 1964 Ford. You know, Ford was very heavily involved in the racing industry from the beginning. In fact, Henry Ford really spent a lot of money trying to make his Fords faster. In fact, he was the one that made the V8 for the Ford Motor Company. He was the one that told his designers that you're going to make me a V8 engine, and he did get what he wanted. And they became a legend in the industry with fast cars. This one here is a 427 cubic inch engine. Back in 1964, this was a hot car. Rich's top tips on how to save you 2 to 5 gallons per tank full. You know what? The biggest abused part on your automobile is your tires. If you're short 5 to 7 pounds in one tire, you're wasting about 2 gallons per tank full. If you have more than one tire that's low on air pressure, about 10 pounds or so, you're probably wasting 3 gallons per tank full. You know, another interesting thing too is we need to keep our cars maintained. Keep the air pressure proper in tires, keep them rotated. Last summer, we received 2 sets of tires for cars that we work on the show from Bridgestone, and they were both really great tires. A set of tires for the Corvette and a set of tires for the truck. The new compounds in tires are really well. If you're going to be buying tires, buy something of quality. By keeping your car clean, putting even a coat of wax on it will keep your car going down the street a lot better. You'll be more aerodynamic. One thing I want to talk about is Rain-X for the windows of the vehicle. This winter we've had a lot of snow and ice. If you put Rain-X on your windows of your automobile, even when the snow and ice hits, it doesn't stick as well, and you won't be scraping for a long period of time in the cold weather. An air filter is very important in an automobile. Most automobiles run on 25 to 35 parts of air to 1 part of gas. When you have a dirty air filter, you are wasting a lot of gas because you're burning a lot more gas than you are air. So change that air filter. And I also want to touch on the oil. Oil is not only a lubricant, but it keeps the motor cool. By changing your oil and oil filter every 2,500 miles, you will have your car running more efficiently and you'll save miles per gallon. Removing all the clutter and debris that we have in our automobiles will save us miles per gallon. Every pound of things you have inside your car that you're not using makes you use more gallons per mile. Also, these are deflectors on the front end of a vehicle, and these deflectors, when they're broken, the airflow is not proper and you're wasting miles per gallon. So if your air deflectors on the bottom front of your automobile are broken or even missing, time to change them, replace them, or put brand new ones on so you can get more miles per gallon. Maintaining the vehicle is the most important thing to get you more miles per gallon. When your spark plugs start to look like this is a spark plug out of one of my cars. It's time to replace it. This only has about 8,000 miles on it. I very seldom drive the car. I put these in about 3 years ago, and the spark plug is bad. That's wasting miles per gallon. Also, the cap and rotor in a vehicle, spark plugs, should be changed around 50, 60,000 miles to give you the best efficiency out of your automobile. Getting a GPS, a global positioning system, will help you a lot because you won't be driving around needlessly. In fact, some of them out there now will actually give you a quick way to get there, the fastest way, or the shortest way. It's real interesting with that. That'll save you a lot of money because if you're like me and you get lost a lot, you're wasting gas. Plus, I want to talk a little bit about highway driving and cruise control. If you use the cruise control and keep your foot out of the pedal, don't put the pedal to the metal, and use the cruise control around 60 to 65 miles per hour, you'll save a lot of gasoline in your vehicle. These segments, Rich's Tips, will be in every show also. Do you know that America uses over 140 billion gallons of gasoline a year? If you do these simple tips, I bet you we could save a quarter of the oil that we're consuming now.